It's party o'clock. Oh, I'm very o'clock. Get your dancing shoes ready and get ready to party along in this movie. So this movie takes us through the story of a struggling couple, Lola and Cheta, struggling, and we say that Cheta loses his job as the factory manager while he had been called at home that same day, earlier in the day, that he needed to buy baby food for his baby, because the wife wasn't working at the time. And lo and behold, he gets to work and he was fired that same day because he he was bold to speak to the owner of the factory, Oga Bling Bling, and that was how he lost his job alongside some other factory workers who were laid off. Well, they gave them rice and ororo that day, so maybe that was going to make up for it. And they were only given a week to vacate the premises. Lola was played by Eniola Ajao, while Cheta was played by Zubi Michael. Also, that same day, Tade had called her elder sister Lola, Tade played by Wumi Toriola, had called her elder sister to send in a contribution towards her wedding because Tade was getting married to a senator, a rich one at that. And Lola had explained to Daddy that she could not afford that right now as she married a Talakanian, unlike how married an Olowo. And the two sisters had been at loggerhead because she couldn't give her sister money towards her wedding preparation. In between all of that, they had to vacate the home, the factory apartment they were living in, and they were left with only one option to go stay with their friend, Cheta's friend, Oga Bernard. Mr. Bernard took them in, played by Odunlade Adekola, and we all thought, oh, what an amazing friend. He accommodated them, but without us knowing that he had other intention and he was trying to woo his friend's wife, Lola. And when she wouldn't budge, he kicked them out of the house. That was after he had attempted to rape her, and the husband, walked in on them and had given him the beating of his life. They were left with no other option than to go over to Lola's mother's house. They showed up. Before that, I feel I skipped a few things. Before that, while they were still at Oga Bernard's house, Lola had decided that she was going to go back to work to support the family financially. She worked as a wardiness, and while at that, she couldn't manage. She had nowhere to put her baby, and so she couldn't manage her baby alongside work, and she was fired the day she resumed back to work because the people she had put her baby in the care were not ready to babysit, and she lost her job. Cheta also got a job in Ogun State, but the day he resumed for the job was the day he quit because he felt he wasn't going to manage rudeness and insubordination and all of that. A poor man with pride. I don't understand it. After that, Lola had also gone to visit her mom at a supermarket. Her mommy sells fabric. Her mom is very rich, played by Shola Shobowale. And while she shows up there, her mother was so embarrassed. She was not happy. She was shouting and all of that. And she had no other choice than to do a few shoppings for her grandson and gave it to her daughter, also insisting that she had told her to marry someone that was rich money was very important, but she chose love and ended up with a poor man. Now back to them being kicked out of Oga Benant's house. They were kicked out and they had no other option than to show up at Lola's mother's house. The day they showed up was Daddy's introduction and it was elaborate, it was glamorous. Dollars flying right front center, notes everywhere. And while they were at that, they got into the premises and someone had quickly gone upstairs to inform Lola's mom that Lola and her husband were around, and the mom had told them that she didn't want them at the introduction scene because of how they appeared. In fact, Lola wasn't informed earlier that her sister was going to be introduced that day. Meanwhile, bear in mind that her sister was getting married to the senator who has had four wives at home already, so she was going into that marriage as the fifth wife. The next day after the introduction, Cheta decided to help out and clear most of, clear everywhere and make it look clean and all, but he was humiliated by his mother-in-law. While at that, he got back to the room and his wife had been brainstorming and she had suggested that, they stole part of the money that would be spent at her younger sister's wedding, which they structured the plan and they got at. On the day of the wedding, they had mapped out their plan successfully, and they took a whopping bag of dollars. Afterwards, the bag that had been taken, led into a chaos, a family chaos, and the whole family was at loggerheads. They were trying to find the money, but they couldn't find the money with Lola and her husband. After that, they moved out. Lola and her husband moved out of the house. They bought a property. They were living fine, managing life and all. And here comes a new neighbor who welcomes them into the area and invites them to her daughter's wedding. Unknown to her that she was inviting thieves into her daughter's wedding. They agreed to show up at the wedding and the husband said they were going to steal at the wedding. And it was wedding day. They partied, did all they needed to do at Yemise's daughter's wedding. Yemise was played by Faithia Balogun. And while they were at that, Cheta went out of the hall, had already located where the power switch was, and he turned it off. And there was a blackout. By the time he turned it back on, the bag of money was missing, and so was Lola. They had planned and succeeded at their plan once again, and they were back to balling. He bought a new car, he bought his wife's favorite hair for her, and they were living their lives. Afterwards, they kept on at it, and Alhaji had invited them to a wedding, and they showed up at that wedding, drugged the person in charge of money, and they carted away with a bag of money once again. At this time, they had purchased a machine that counts money, the type they use in the banks. And once they steal money, they pack them, they stack them, they count them and all. They kept on at this business, and after that came their baby's birthday. The baby had an elaborate birthday party. The show, and it was elaborate. Her mom and her younger sister, had showed up at the wedding. Sorry, why do I keep saying wedding? At the birthday party to wish them and celebrate with their grandchild. And they were not welcoming. Lola and her husband were not ready to welcome them because they felt when they needed them, they were not receptive or accommodating or welcoming. While at that, a quick backstory: Tade had been kicked out of her husband's house because she was caught in a matrimonial bed with a younger guy, which had been planned out by the older wives of the senator, and she was kicked out. Her mother was ripped off the massive fabric store she had, and they were back to the ground. Here comes the lady who was in charge of Tade's money at our wedding. She located Cheta at a bar, and because she knew that Cheta was loaded, she, found her way into his heart, seduced him, and they started dating. She became the side chick. While at that, news came again that the Oga Bling Bling that had fired Cheta, rendering him jobless and rendering him an Owambe thief in the first instance, who was about to have a elaborate wedding for his daughter, and it was going to be loud, and they structured their plans again, got to the wedding, bought that we got into the wedding, partied, caused a bit of distraction at the wedding, and everywhere went in chaos, and people ran out for their lives, forgetting the bag of money they had packed for the wedding. While at that, there was a guy left behind, played by Dereli. Dereli secured the bag, unknown to him that Cheta was the boss. Cheta had a gun and was able to retrieve the bag of money from him. Someone had called the police. The police were on their way. They were trailing the couple. While at that, the couple were smarter and they were able